soon. Is it recording there? There it is. Okay. Alrighty, guys. Welcome back to episode 4 of Tejano Talks. My name is Mr. Sanchez from Eagle Pass, Texas, and it looks like we have another guest. Hopefully, she's able to answer. Oh, I hit admit, didn't I? I don't know. There she is. Yay! Hi, Lorena.
Hi, Lorena.
We already started recording, so let me go ahead and just finish the introduction. Tejano Talks is in an effort to try to get kids and adults, teachers, the alumni, current students to get to know more about the Tejano culture, to get to know both sides of the story, because we are a hybrid culture. And all of this is in an effort to promote our festival, which we will be hosting soon. More information in the notes. Today is a very special day because we are, we have special guests today, Mrs. Lizzie Agosto over here. We also have Mrs. Lorena Lafuente, alumni, EPR. We have Ms. Saida Matu. And of course, we have Mrs. Kassandra Thatcher. She was a student here at EPR as well. And she was one of the first students to publish a book here in the Eagle Public Radio program. I'm very, very proud of that, to have been able to assist. But she was the brains behind all of that, and I really appreciate you. Okay, guys. So today we will be talking about a Netflix episode called Latin History from John Leguizamo. So everyone already saw the show. Yes, everyone's good. Okay.
I actually haven't seen it.
It's okay. You could be a part of the conversation anyway. You'll see I have a lot of the quotes anyway, Lore. So, so John starts off with trying to understand history, and his biggest conflict throughout the whole film is that he feels a sense that his son doesn't belong, or that the son doesn't feel like he belongs. And so there's this quote where he says that supposedly the son was shooting at robbers, and he was like a cowboy, and there were like Indians or something like that, and he's shooting the Indian, and John walks in and is like, no, honey, don't be doing that. We're the Indians or something like that. And so he says, because honey, we're Native Americans. We Latin people are mostly Indian. And then the young man says, no, Dad, no, you're the Native American and the beaner, not me. I've mentioned that only because we live in a very strange age where obviously we live in America. The language is English, and we're supposed to speak that, obviously. But there's no switch. So we cannot switch who we are. We still are, whether we want to be something and we're not. So what's y'all's experience, especially the college kids over here? I know, Kassy, you're at A&M right now, or have gone there. I don't know where you're at right now, Lore, but what's the overall feel? Do you still feel a connectedness to your culture, to your language, to your region, or do you find a lot of people trying to get away from that and just kind of blend in with everyone else?
I think it's like really cool. Like if my roommate was Mexican American, and like I had some Mexican American friends, so like that like helped me, like we were able to relate to each other and like connect with each other more so.
That's nice. So you do feel that there is a connection, and you felt an affinity because of that.
Yes.
That's good. How about you, Lores?
So I'm actually going to the college here.
Okay.
So a lot of us are Hispanic, so that connection, I still have it. And and so like you go to the hallways and you hear people talking Spanish, so it's like you haven't really like lost any of that culture, which is, it's good for me.
It's fun. Yeah. How about you, Lizzie? I know you went to UT, Mrs. Agosto.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to like keep it concise.
Yes.
I went through like this cultural identity crisis, and I mean we kind of go through it over and over throughout our lives, especially now in this current age. But when I left, I kind of wanted to leave certain aspects of my culture behind, and one of the main things I wanted to leave behind was my accent.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I had an accent until I went up to Austin. The thing where it's like, oh my God, your accent's so cute, and you're like,
I don't have an accent. You're looking around like,
how can you not? Spanish was one, my first language, and two, we're around people that speak the same dialect in the same way. And, I talk about this in class, after spending so much time in an area, people develop dialects and, accents. Okay, moving on. I kind of wanted that like distance, but then the homesickness hits.
Mm-hmm.
And you seek that connection out there. My roommate and I, she was from Eagle Pass. We didn't get, we were close, not that close.
Yeah.
My second year, I lived with my now best friend, and she was born in India. She immigrated to the United States when she was 6, and we were just so interested in each other's culture that we started vibing and sharing those aspects with each other. And then my junior year, I joined a sorority where like it had a large Hispanic Latina population somehow. It wasn't a Latina sorority per se, a cultural sorority. But I found that connect where it's okay. It's okay to be proud of who you are.
Yes.
I also had a very diverse group of roommates my 3rd and 4th year living in Austin, but it did take me a while to really be not just proud, but like accept, like, you know what? My accent is a part of who I am, and it's okay. I did felt like I lost it. I think, Lorena, you were one of my first students. And I'll never forget one of my students like saying like I didn't listen to a certain type of music because I was a gringa. And I'm like, and then I had to like
wait, what?
Kind of go back and be like reclaim it. I'm like, no, I'm not. And it's kind of come full circle where it's like I'm okay with this. I'm okay with my accent. I'm okay with the aspects of my culture that obviously things that could change, but kind of going back to the core of the question, did I find community? I did. It did take me a while to seek out that community, but it's there. And it just felt so nice to be able to share certain things, the idea of matachinas during Christmas, and certain holiday traditions, your food, and even just your manner of speaking. And it's so important to have that, especially when you're so far away.
Yeah.
College Station, Austin is not so far as College Station, but it's nice to have that connection.
That bond. It's like an instantaneous bond. Like, oh, I see. I don't only know you, but I really see you for who you are, and I know where you're from. And again, the whole thing about this is just a celebration of both of our cultures because we get to be both, And I'll just 2 stories real quick. I went to Texas State and I was in San Marcos, and at first I was the same as you. Like I was like, and I would have some people that were very polite, tell me about my accent. And I was like me? I mean, and I remember being at the mall and asking for help or something. And there was a Hispanic looking young man. And I remember for some reason, I just felt like, oh, because I didn't see that many Hispanic looking folks. I was like, hey, so I saw someone, I spoke to him in Spanish. Hey, can you tell me where this is at? Pues sí, on the or whatever. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? It's like, oh, it's like I wanted to bond. And this was like a year after I was in Texas State. I guess you miss people, you miss a certain kind of the language, and I missed speaking the language. And I wanted to have an excuse to talk to someone else about it, and I was like, oh dang. And I remember, I think that was the 1st or 2nd year that I was at Texas State, and it wasn't until then I didn't mind being called Frank. I was okay. I liked it. That's what I've been called, and I still am called again, even here. But after situations like that, I was like, man, I really miss my hometown and I miss my language. And after then, it was like, I asked, and everyone was really good about it. Texas State is such a wonderful college, and everyone was really cool about like calling me Francisco after that. And so it's like I wanted to feel like like it's part of who I am. I love both, like I said. This is kind of we're digging in deep, but I'll go ahead and I'll mention this. Saida, you're kind of relatively new to coming from Mexico, coming over here, studying over here, and how's the transition been for you as far as language is concerned? I know we strive, obviously, and we have to. It's English as a primary language type of deal, but how do you feel about the culture shock? Coming in.
I don't think there was a gigantic culture shock. I was taught English at my other school. I went to a private school. It was a bilingual school. One thing that I remember as a child that irked me so much was when we went to Del Rio, because we lived in Acuña. And, my mom would take me to the stores and be like, ¿Qué estás diciendo, mija? ¿Cuánto cuesta esto? Pregúntale. And I would try to ask, and then the ladies will speak to me in Spanish. I would be like, what? Why are you speaking to me in Spanish? I know English. I'm the best in the class at English.
I would have
How
practiced.
dare you?
I love that. All right, let's move on. Mr. Leguizamo starts talking about, he says, I didn't have any heroes like captains or generals growing up from the Civil War. No Latin ones anyway. And where should have I learned that? Junior high, so obviously school, right? So he's talking about a junior high teacher who's like writing up on the wall. It's like, all right, class, well, what did the Greeks contribute, right? And this guy, John Leguizamo at the time, is like, he's raised his hand, ooh. So it's not necessarily to contribute what the Greeks have done, but just to ask. He's like, and I wrote the question, I wanted to ask you why you always talk about everybody else's contributions to America, but my people's. Later on, he talks about we weren't discovered, we were conquested. Okay, so we're gonna have to try to dodge lasers here, but more importantly, I thought that it would be kind of interesting is we know the history here, you know, from the American point of view. Obviously, we're supposed to learn that, right? But Saida, can you tell us a little bit about what life or what you learned in history textbooks from Mexico? Who's revered? What kind of folks are looked up at as heroes and stuff like that?
The people that are mostly looked up as heroes that I remember, something that really stuck to me as a kid was Los Niños Héroes, kids 15, 20-year-olds.
I've heard of that.
Defending the Chapultepec Castle from...
Yes, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and do you get another plethora? Like, where are most people from? Do you study only Mexican folks, or do you study Latin American folks too? Simón de Bolívar or something like that, or is it just restricted to Mexican folks only?
We studied both Mexican folks, and we also studied Spanish folks, and then we also studied Native American folks.
Nice. Like
back in school
from North America as well, or just the Mexican one?
Just the Mexican. We used to learn Nahuatl, Zapoteca, Mayan words to help with reading their legends, to help with studying their culture and kind of understand it better.
I like that. So they do go in deeper into the native cultures from Mexico, into the languages and the tribes and the stories from them.
Not super deep.
Give me a percentage. Give me a percentage in a whole year. I'm curious. I'm just curious.
It was mostly in English class because we read a lot of legends. So they'll be like, okay, so you're gonna go over these words and this is what they mean. This is how they're pronounced. This is how you pronounce Ixtahuatl. This is how you pronounce Popocatépetl.
I like those. They're very strong. Cacahuate, is that one? Or what's the other one? Aguacates, right? Tecolotes. Those are they're fun words to say.
Yucatan is one of them.
I have this one's aimed, let's see here, to Miss Lizzie, and I love Mrs. Agosto. I love the fact that we're communicating cross disciplines because, you know, studying media and studying media history is very fun, and so bouncing ideas with one another is going to be kind of cool for me. John Leguizamo goes on to say, he says, I don't know about you all, but I always felt my whole life that my history was being kept from me. You know, from history books, textbooks, movies, television, everywhere. And he talks about specifically his uncle, his Puerto Rican deaf uncle, who would see PBS, and that's another one. So I want you to mix history and public broadcast television, which gets a lot of funding from the government. So it used to be very strong back in the day, and you know, Mr. Rogers had to go up to Senate and Congress and try to fight for its very existence, because back then advertising was minimal, if existent at all. But since then, it's kind of loosened the regulations a little bit. So he says, the Puerto Rican uncle was learning a lot. He says, mijo, no seas menso. You have to know about yourself. Bebito, we had pyramids and calendars. Get your things together, because Latin men and women have to work twice as hard to get half as far in life. Tell me what your thoughts are on that, Mrs. Agosto.
On that? Okay. Well, first of all, I just feel like even in the first 10 minutes, there's so much to unpack in what he says and what he says. And in saying that, like, he's very, very true. Like he's very right. I'm sorry. Like, you know, we have to know who we are. We have to know that we did have these major contributions that were literally erased from history. And that's something I try to emphasize in my class because, you know, I teach world history. And as much as I try to like emphasize the importance of the Americas and the conquest of the Americas, it's so hard to be able to like devote 2 weeks to it when I have all this like other material that like I'm responsible for teaching. But it's true, you know, you have to be aware of who you are and where you've come from and what your people have contributed to. I will say that a lot of history textbooks don't have that record. Yeah. I will say, as flawed as many textbooks are, the one I use has a lot of information. It is a world history textbook, you know, and it mentions things that even like Wazamu like mentioned, you know, the calendars, you know, I compare, you know, the beginnings of civilization, you know, in the old world, you know, they have the 5 characteristics. And when I mention the Americas, I'm like, hey guys, you know, these people were thriving all these many years ago, but so were the Aztec and so were the Maya and so were the Inca. Those same characteristics that people looked for in ancient worlds in the old world were found here too.
Yeah. But the kids don't hear about that much. And so they don't know who they are. And so they feel, I think sometimes they feel like they're just kind of floating around trying to find out who they are or blend into something that is. It could be real challenging. This question goes out to Miss Kassy and Mrs. Lorena. And this is a combination. So it's a combination of seeing yourself in media, film, history, and all that stuff. But now I'm curious as to y'all's experience in remote learning. Right now, this is a very special project because everyone's communicating, everyone's has their cameras on. I don't have this kind of interaction with my classes on day-to-day. I have some, but it's not this interactive. And as you know, you guys, when you guys were in school, you could see what the cliques were, for better and for worse. You knew who the sporty people were. You know who the cowboy people were. You knew who the band kids were, and there was culture and there was style and fashion, and you know, people looked handsome and good looking, and it's like, wow, you could thrive for that. I'm curious what the college experience has been like for you guys. Do you see yourselves on the screen, or can you log in and not see one another's and you just see a blank icon? And what has life been like now with remote learning education and visually seeing yourself or not on your classes? So Kassy or Miss Lore?
So like right now I'm in Eagle Pass, but like I feel like the remote learning, it's so weird because like you don't connect with people, and like sometimes like they have breakout rooms, which is like when you go into groups, but sometimes it's really awkward because like it's online. And it's just weird. And then like seeing yourself on camera is very like makes you very self-conscious. So like a lot of the times if the professor doesn't like require it, you could see like a majority of the people like
they don't have
their
it
cameras on. Yeah,
that must be very challenging. What about you, Lore? How is the junior college operating here?
So I agree with Kassandra. I mean, we are doing remote learning, and I do agree that it can be kind of like weird because a lot of my professors don't require you to like have your camera on, but then there is some that do require. And since like I'm at home and I just get out of work, I'm like eating and I feel awkward like eating like in front of the camera. So then I asked the professor, "Can I have the camera, please?" And but yeah, like from what Kassandra said about the breakout rooms, that is super different. Like it can be really awkward because, you know, how it was before in person, we would, you know, communicate with each other and we would be able to like, you know, be more interactive versus like now it's like a lot of people don't even respond at all. So,
like, yeah, especially in the AV class. Remember when we would break up into groups and stuff like that, and you guys would communicate and lead and draw and have these maps. Yeah. Tell me this. Are we interacting more than you do in those breakout sessions or in any other course like that? I'm curious. See?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And right now, I gotta admit, guys, you have to see. I gotta be honest with you guys, especially my alumni. And when life is regular, I know y'all are out there crushing it. He's got like a great educational system. You got a lot of experience here, and you guys leave, and it's like, okay, they're gonna be fine, and they come over and they visit, and when they can. But now that we're during this whole lockdown type situation, I'm like, I gotta find clever ways to connect with my kids and make sure that they're okay, and make sure that they matter, and that I want to connect with you guys, because there's very few genuine, authentic connections right now being created, and schools used to provide that, friends, professors, mentors, but it's no longer out there. So on behalf of Mrs. Agosto and myself, because clearly we're just taking time out of our day to do this, I want you guys to know, and the rest of the kids that might be watching, that you are loved, and you matter, and community is important. It's important to connect with others. It's important to be open to listening and understanding yourself and understanding others. So thanks again, guys. I really, really appreciate this opportunity.
It's very refreshing to see these many faces, and some classes are better than others, more comfortable, but it's so nice to have this like back and forth communication.
It's a whole nother frequency, right, Mrs. Agosto?
Yes,
it's so refreshing.
Very refreshing.
And it's like even better than, I feel like, some of the college classes, and definitely some of my best classes even here. It's like the connecting I get to have, and I love that we have our high school students, we have faculty, and we have alumni, and we're just opening a discussion. Mr. Leguizamo goes on to say, he says, okay, so we have the Mayans, 1000 BC, and then pit bull years, which is in the 2000s. So we have 3,000 years, right? And it's like, how did we become so non-existent? He says, because if you don't see yourself represented outside of yourself, you just feel invisible. He said, George Santana said, those who cannot remember their past are doomed to repeat it, ¿verdad? And let's keep going. So that all kind of reflects what we've been talking about. We have to see one another. We have to learn from one another. If we're not open to discussion in the breakout sessions or in regular classrooms, how can we expect our kids to feel connected or that they matter? This is a little depressing, so I'm just going to mention it, but I'm not going to stick around too long for it, okay? But I just saw the numbers, and it's like, ugh. So it says, way back when, I said we had 3 million Taino, Puerto Rican, Native American tribe. We had 3 million Incas in South America, 30 million Aztecs in Mexico, 7 million Apache, Comanche, and Navajo. So for a grand total of 73 million people before it was discovered, right? And then it says until the Great Extermination, where we only had, so we went from 73 million to 3.65 million in it. And I wasn't able to take the notes because we've been really busy, but I tried to write it down. He mentioned, obviously, biological warfare, whether it was intended or not. And I just kind of thought about like what we're currently going through right now. Viruses, infection. This is not new, first of all. Oh, yes, Saida. Oh, great job. Go for it, Saida.
Like that's also going to affect the Latino community in such a large part, because the Latinos are the ones that go out and work in the fields. They're the ones that go out and clean.
Intergenerational
they
families.
They can't stop working.
Yeah.
And the people that are going to get destroyed, families that are going to get torn apart by this virus are mostly going to be Latino, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Dominican Republic, all of these people.
John Leguizamo said this too, and I was not going to mention it, but I will mention this, and I'll say the purpose of this is to improve. So he mentioned some of that, and then later on, and I wasn't going to say this part because I didn't write it on my notes, but he said, because Hispanic life is cheap in America. And it's oh God, it hurts, because we're not different. We're equal citizens, and we're working together. And so for me, it breaks my heart that things that helped the Paleolithic folks that we are overcome Neanderthals, not because of strength, but because we were able to communicate and work together. A lot of the beautiful things of Hispanic culture, a hug, a kiss, hey, I miss you, living together, eating the panecito con café, you know, in the mornings, having discussions with folks, having carnes asadas, the smell of mesquite, right? I remember when I was at Texas State, not smelling that and not even caring, but then missing Eagle Pass and coming around Christmas, and it's like, oh my God, it's like you get all these senses and smells. There's a lot of stories that are to be told, and it is up to us to capture those stories. That's what history is for, and that's what this audio video class is for, is to capture the stories, curate the stories, and observe them. It matters to record history and to have a place for it. And it's important to pause and look back and not be upset at this stuff because it doesn't change it, but just be aware of it and find ways to helping our community, because you guys are our students. My kids go to schools here, and they have teachers that are local, and we really are all in this together. So it breaks my heart to know Laredo, our brothers and sisters in Laredo are so deeply impacted, and as are we, number one, number two, interchangeably by the New York Times. But it's not forever. It's not definite. We have to find ways to overcome what's going on. But this isn't new. And look, 3,000 years ago and all that good stuff. We've existed since 3,000 years ago. We've had all these things happen to us, and we're still here. And we're still having these discussions, and we're educated. Our kids are going to college. Ourselves, we're here. We're teaching our kids, and it is up to us to find ways to have our children from our community live forthrightly in the world, feeling proud of to be an American citizen on 4th of July, being out there celebrating those stars and stripes, but also being proud of their Hispanic heritage, because we're lucky because we get both. Okay, something else is kind of interesting here. And you might know more about this than I do, Mrs. Agosto. It says, and he's kind of upset at that, but I don't know. Here's where language is very important, and the use of language. So he says, why is all of our art called folk art? And then all the European art called fine art. And then modern art, he says, is just our folk art gentrified. Have you been to museums that do that? It's like, it's the same thing. You know, anyway, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Like I said, anything he says can be like unpacked in so many different ways. Yeah. And it's so true, because we see the effects of that gentrification everywhere. I mean, I don't know if you girls have seen these posts and these articles that have been circulating, especially in the last couple years or so, of people that are taking, indigenous art, not artifacts. I'm trying to think, like trinkets, like
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes, you know what I'm talking about, right?
They resell it on the Etsy.
And they resell it on either Etsy or just like, things like sarapes or our shirts, the embroidered shirts. Like I couldn't wear that because I'd be called an India, but a white girl wears it and it's fine. And it's a top, and it's evident everywhere. And it's very true. We see that, that gentrification of our art, or like, and we see it throughout all cultures, that
I don't know how much of that is the system that we live in, because we live in a capitalistic society where we extract, there used to be things that were sacred, right? The cross, the Holy Cross was a sacred thing or something. And it was, a religious artifact or whatever. And now it's like, oh yeah, well, you can buy a couple at Walmart, and you just sell it for a profit now. And it's like, okay, what happened to all the sacredness of that thing? You know what I mean? What happened to all the culture for that? And I think that's what's happening with culture. It's kind of getting reduced. Okay, guys, we got like a few minutes. We're actually already slightly on overtime. I just want to finish on a slightly good note. I hope all of it was good, but just watch. He mentions a couple of books, and I want to have that start a reading list of all books that Eagle Passans should read. He talks about Howard Zinn's. He says, I got a copy of the 8th grade history book, and I'm looking for heroes, and I'm looking for contributions, and I'm looking for from cover to cover, and there's nothing, nada, not one sentence, not one mention, as if we've been absent all these centuries. And then he says, that got me down. That got me down until I got turned on to Howard Zinn's, quote, A People's History of the United States. Because even in the first chapter, he says, he proves that our contributions were bigger than what I even thought, because we gave you guys tomatoes, potatoes, chocolate, hammocks, canoes, chili peppers, tobacco, anesthesia, all right, brain surgery, and hockey. Okay, so be proud of what the folks have done. We don't know about that, but we got to be proud of that.
Daily baths too. I have to add that too. That's
Which one?
something. Daily baths and
Daily
shower.
baths.
I tell my kids. I'm sorry.
I didn't know that one.
That's a fun fact that I learned recently. And I relearned recently that the Aztecs were very clean. They were all about cleanliness, and they showered and they bathed every day, and that when the Europeans, the Spaniards didn't.
Yes.
And that they would burn incense whenever the Spanish or the Spaniards would be around. And that they're honoring them, but really it was like they're trying to mask the smell of of them. But so that's another contribution.
I did not know that. I love that. Okay. All right, guys. So we've kind of come to the end. It's very rushed. I want to see if we could modify the format, because 30 minutes sounds like a lot, but it just goes by so fast. Usually we end the podcast by trying to state something positive, something that's working for you, something that kind of gives you some peace of mind. And I'll go first just so y'all can know. So I'll just say 2 and try to limit yourself to like 15 seconds to 30 seconds. So real quick, here we go. First of all, again, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to have an excuse to communicate with the community, literally, and to be listened to and to listen to you guys. I love that opportunity. Number 2, Mrs. Kumpian hooked us up. She got a grant for something like this. And my kids know this. We used to do this a while back. It's like a meditation. So Lore, you remember that, and Kassandra, you remember that, right? Mrs. Kumpian bought this thing, and now I use it like the last 5 minutes of every meet. I cannot tell you how much I look forward to those. I'm launching it only in my advanced classes, and it's like, oh, and Saida got to be there today, and it's like it helps be like relaxed and calm, and I am so happy that I can share that with them, and that I can look forward to that every day. So, all right, anyone who wants to go from there, or I can name y'all one by one to start thinking.
So I'm really grateful for this opportunity too. Just because I really missed being a part of your class, and this is kind of like a way for me to be a part of it again. So I'm really grateful for that, Mr. Sanchez. I'm so grateful for everything that you have done for us, and keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Lafuente.
And I wanted to say something to Ms. Agosto. I wanted to say thank you for everything that you done for me as well. You helped me through like something that, I couldn't really like talk to anybody else about. And, on my graduation, I was actually looking for you, and I couldn't find you because I wanted to say thank you in person. So this is kind of like an opportunity for me to do that as well.
Yay. So, awesome. Thank you for that. That made my day, Lorena. That's so beautiful.
I remember that. And I will, I've never forgotten you. I remember we ran into each other your senior year, and you're like, "Do you remember me?" I'm like, "Of course I do."
And I should give you a letter once too.
Oh, you're muted, Miss.
Yeah, I muted myself. I did remember that, and I do remember you, and you were one of my first kids, and kind of trying to keep into like my time. This is such a great opportunity. I'm so grateful for Mr. Sanchez for this, because these 3 young women that are here in front of us, Saida and Lorena were my students. Kassy was my student by extension in NHS. And it's so great to be able to communicate with you all on this platform, when in a way that isn't confined by what I have to teach you in class, and this is something that affects us, all of us, not just us that are here, but us as like a community in our lives, even though we don't really think about it that way. So this is a great opportunity, and like I hope I can come back and dive into this even deeper, because like I said, there's so much to unpack in just every sentence he says. It's awesome.
I love it.
We're gonna need a part 2 for this episode. We really are.
Yeah, it was very long. I got only into like 40 minutes of the show. It wasn't even 40. It was less, and it's like an hour and a half. It's so much information.
We're gonna need a part 2 or a part 3, because I felt that my experience as a Mexican child, moving so young, seeing such a difference in culture, And holding both of those studs, I felt very validated.
Oh,
I felt
yes.
like I could share
I love that
this
word.
experience that I had as a child,
Yes.
giving to y'all what I learned as a kid.
Yes.
And you guys are interested in it. Very validating. We're gonna need a part 2.
I love it. Yes, you are seen. All of you guys are seen, and you matter just for the sake of your existence, of your being here right now, living and breathing. You matter. Kassy?
I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity because, like I said earlier, it's very awkward sometimes in my classes. So, like, being able to interact with like this is really awesome. And I'm also thankful for like my family that like I'm able to like be with them in this time of isolation.
Yeah.
And
I love it. I love it, guys. And again, I kind of reach out. We're working very, very hard, obviously, to run the classes, to do this, to have the Tejano Crossroads Media Festival. I reach out to a lot of y'all. I was in contact with Mrs. Kassy, Thatcher as well for Hooked on Books. That's another initiative we got going on. Again, guys, it's good to be informed. Keep your head up. Count on one another as much as you can, and know that we're here. Don't be afraid to send an email, make a phone call, to reach out. Right now, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of suffering, both real and just in your own mind. And your family, your friends, your teachers, your cousins, we're here for you. We weren't here for you just then because we were obligated to. We're here for you because we're here for you. Okay. So in a second, I'm gonna go ahead and hit the stop recording, and then me despido ahorita individually como quiera ahorita. Okay, guys, we're good. Awesome. Hold on, guys.